Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Steven Haggerty. Today I'm joined by Ashley Pollak, founder of Cyber Alarm and Etio. How are you today, Ashley?
Very good. I should say co-founder of Cyber Alarm.
Co-founder. I always get that wrong. Some people are cool about it, and then I feel like some other co-founders are like, "Hey, dude, why? What about me?"
So no, I think it's one of my learnings at the moment is it's all about the team and partnering. Yeah. That's something I've learned later in my entrepreneurial journey. But three co-founders of
Cyber Alarm. Co-founders, three. Yeah. That's pretty much the very common number with co-founders, either one or three. Which is great. We'll get into the team aspect later, but before we do that, just let everyone know what you do, what is Cyber Alarm, and then we'll get into how you started it, because I think it's quite a cool story.
Perfect. So my name's Ashley Pollak, and Cyber Alarm is a cybersecurity platform that we've developed for small to medium-sized businesses. It's a subscription-based service where you get alerted if you've been hacked or if you're vulnerable to being hacked. And the business kind of came out of my first endeavor, which was running a video agency called Etio that got hacked. And that led to some of the conversations that led on to what became Cyber Alarm.
See, that's what's interesting for me, because people get hacked every single day, but not a lot of people will then say, right, now let's try and create a solution to stop people or to people become aware of getting hacked. For you, why did that happen? Why did you go down that route rather than be like, right, we got hacked, let's put in some changes so it doesn't happen again?
So it's interesting with founder stories, isn't it? It depends which way you want to position the story. I'm going to be completely transparent and open. What actually happened was Dominic, my partner, is a good friend. We've known each other a long, long time, and he's an IT director. I've been my small business for, I guess you might call a lifestyle business at this stage, a video agency for the last 15 years. And we go climbing together. And so Dominic started sort of pulling my ear, is that the phrase? He started picking my brains about this idea he'd had that within the enterprise sector, he just didn't really see that there was an option out there, or a very good option for businesses like mine. So we were talking about it. We'd go climbing every week. A few months went by, and then my business got hacked, which Dominic assures me wasn't him. And suddenly it went from me just sort of chatting and giving some advice on marketing and sales to really understanding as a small business owner what that feels like, what the consequences are. And it really framed in my head what he'd been talking about. And that's how we developed forward from there. We were like, well, how can we, it's observing a challenge or a problem in life, isn't it? And then working out a way to create something to solve that. And that is what, first of all, Dominic and I worked very hard to start to pull together. And then we brought in our third partner who had a superpower we didn't have 5-6 months later. And we've been busying away ever since.
Love it. For you, those are two very different businesses, video agency and a cybersecurity company. How have you as a founder managed to split your time and give enough focus on each to still be, a successful business, I guess?
Yeah. So one of my teachers at school, on one of my school reports, as my art teacher, said Ashley has lots of ideas, but he has trouble concentrating on any one in particular. So running a video agency was great, because 1 minute I'd be doing films for lastminute.com on travel, and then a cinema trailer for the British Museum, and then science, and then all sorts of topics. So it kept my brain, I think maybe I got confused. I thought I was just a creative person who liked lots of different things and liked the sort of fieriness of that. I think what I've realized more recently, and particularly over this time in lockdown, is actually you can have different strings to your bow, different things going on, but you need to focus in on each one in turn. You can't be doing everything at the same time. So to be honest, running Etio and having my staff and trying to get Cyber Alarm off the ground was a challenge, because my partners actually were in a different position. Matt, other co-director, has an IT job. It's very steady. His kids are older, and he was able to do a bit every day. He was able to kind of go run and do a few hours every day, and that was his approach. For me, it was kind of, I would go in and do a lot and then nothing, and then a lot and then nothing. And that's challenging when you have partners, and that has been a challenge on our journey, because we're all in different places and none of us are getting paid yet. We're putting our own money in. However, luckily, because of lockdown, I've had to completely reframe how I think about how I'm earning money, and I've been able to put CyberAlarm at the top of my pile since, I mean, I guess we'll come into this, my lockdown business I set up since that's actually quietened down.
This is the was this the gardening business?
Yeah, so here we go. So I mean,
so at the moment your art teacher is completely correct. And you're just going, right, you know what, I've got etio, I've got CyberAlarm, I'm just not quite busy enough.
Well, I think it's I mean, etio I've been doing for a long time, and lockdown happened, and really the only opportunities for video that came up then were to kind of pivot into doing live streaming or something around helping people in this current climate.
A few people did.
Yeah, which, to be honest, I have no interest in. Like, just because it's video doesn't mean I have to be interested in it. There's lots of video I'm not interested in. And so money just disappeared there. I had to furlough my team. So etio's small, there's 5 of us. I had to furlough everyone, move out of the office, etc., etc. And then I had CyberAlarm, and I was like, well, that's great. I've got something to focus on, but that's not going to be, it's not something I can rely on quite yet, because we're just starting, we're just getting going. It's not bringing in the revenue to pay my salary yet. So it was more of an entrepreneurial, well, what do people need at the moment? What is going on? And so on a Tuesday, I'm not saying it was a particularly unique idea, but my wife had worked as a marketing director for Wyville Garden Centres. A good old friend and I had done some gardening films together. He's a horticulture guy. And I just rang him up and said, Jonathan, where out of interest, all the garden centres are closed. Where are the plants coming from, and how does that work? And I sort of dug in. It turned out he knew a lot of the people local to him who grew plants. And so that was Tuesday. We set up a website, or I stayed up till 3 a.m, Wednesday, Thursday, organised supply on Friday, launched on Saturday. And by Monday morning, we had 300.
Amazing.
So week we had 6 days, like my neighbour.
Oh, your sound's going a little bit.
Sorry, sound just went. Can you hear me?
A little bit. You had 300 what?
Sorry, the most exciting bit.
The most exciting bit. I don't know if
320 orders. Let's just have that. Yeah, basically in 3 days, 320 orders.
Amazing.
And then what I was saying, then we had to hire 6 drivers and set up a distribution system, and we used a golf course to distribute the products. Right, went on a big journey. The most important thing, though, because Lockdown Gardener was a reactive entrepreneurial pursuit, for CyberAlarm, it gave me excuse my language, but a hell of a lot of confidence that you can have an idea and you can make something happen quickly. So actually there were so many learnings there that it was such a roll your sleeves up and get on with it thing, that it really nicely countered the fact that for months on CyberAlarm, we'd been going through all of our sprints, developing the product and working in a very systematic way. And so that's what I'm really excited about right now, is I've got that kind of lockdown attitude in the way that we're pushing forward with CyberAlarm, and that's starting to reap dividends. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm very excited by that.
You remind me of myself, actually, because I'm one of those same people that sort of has to have 3 focuses on it pretty much all the time. I'm always got 3 different little projects going on.
Right.
But as you know, as I know, there's this overwhelming message to founders and entrepreneurs that to be truly successful, you have to focus on one thing. And I think you've proved that isn't the case. I've proved that isn't the case. I think lots of people prove that isn't the case. But for you, how do you make it so that you're on the outside, that message that you're portraying is still being clearly understood and being heard by those right people?
Yeah, that's interesting, because I'm on a podcast here, right? Talking about being the co-founder of a cybersecurity firm, and I've just thrown in there that I also do videos and I also do gardening. So you could say, well, the guy's not very focused on cybersecurity. I think you can only be honest and true to who you personally are. And so CyberAlarm, Matt and Dom, is like they are that's like core of that. I'm a small business owner who who got engaged with this issue because of a situation I was in. And actually, there's a real power to that, because if I talk to another small business owner, I'm not talking as the cyber security guy, the geek that they're not going to engage with. I can very honestly say I've been in your shoes. Yeah. So actually, I was talking to someone about this the other day. I'm just going to run with that even more. I want to sort of bring myself to life more in this context and not be embarrassed or try to hide the fact of who I am. And I think that's more important, because, you know, in this world we're in now, you can't really hide anything, can you?
No, exactly. Especially with cybersecurity, I think it's one of those fields that is still hugely misunderstood. So many unknowns from a consumer-based business. And if you're going at that approach in terms of that honest, look, this is where the story comes from, this is how I got affected, then you're obviously going to connect with those small business owners that you want to connect with. But what's the overarching idea for Cyber Alarm? Where do you guys want to take it, and what do you want to do with it?
I mean, I think we are.
Trick question.
Where do you want to take it? I mean, first of all, what I'm focused on right now is that the first users that I'm working with now, the people that I have a very much more intimate relationship with, which is not the big plan, right? The big plan is that someone sees an ad in Canada and then comes and buys it, and I never ever talk to them. But at the moment where I'm at, I want to ensure that everyone is having an amazing experience, that they really love the product. So I guess we're still at that stage of really fostering that. But in the longer term, we really believe that there are millions of small business owners who are just not engaging with this issue at all in any way. They, you know, it's in the back of their head. They know that there are cyber attacks, and they hear about Marriott and they hear about British Airways, and they think it has no relevance to them. And because it's technical and because it's overwhelming, it almost pushes it away further. So what I'm most excited about is changing that perception, and our product being the thing that changes that perception for a lot of people. And that's where I think I do have a role to play in this business as the small business owner voice, is that it isn't just about the technology behind what we're doing. It's about enabling people to be more secure, even though it's something they're not necessarily thinking about right now. I don't know if that makes sense.
Perfect sense. Talk me through about the process for you when you're working with a client with Cyber Alarm then, because from what you've just said, it sounds super personal at the moment. Obviously not when you've got thousands of users, but for you, why is it important that you do make it personal and you do understand what their business is and all those jazz?
At this stage of starting the business, you mean? Yeah. I mean, I've worked in, I guess, marketing related fields for all of my career. So I started in advertising and then have gone on to do video. You've got to get inside the head of your customer. And I think that's the other really good thing with having partners who are coming at things from different angles. I don't know if you know about Myers-Briggs, the personality test. Yeah. Right. Dominic and I are literally opposites. I got him to do it. He wasn't keen to do it, but he did a Myers-Briggs test. And it said these two personality types work brilliantly together if you trust each other, because you'll never get in each other's way. And so I think what's great at the moment is the technical side of the business. Matt Joyce, my other partner, he's cybersecurity engineer, super experienced with very big companies. And so he's the details guy. And so at this stage, from my perspective, I don't want to make any assumptions. You have to have an intimate relationship with those first users to really dig under the skin of not just logically what they're going to do, but much more emotively, what do they feel when different things happen? And that can be as simple as your platform can be brilliant, but an email that I receive actually annoys me or makes me think something's a bit pointless, or it can be very, very subtle. And so I think at that early stage, really, I want to have intimate relationships with, a few hundred people where they can personally call me. Although in the longer term, of course, that is not sustainable.
When you get in like 300 calls a day, you're thinking this was a mistake.
Yeah, but it's, go back to Lockdown Gardener, right? Lockdown Gardener, we had 1,000 orders in total in 8 weeks. Yeah. And up until the third week, my wife's because it was my wife was in the business as well. It was her personal phone number on our website. We switched it to a phone line when it became overwhelming, but better to do it that way round than just to not be accessible and then get complaints. And as a result, we've got 55-star reviews on Trustpilot. I want to make sure with Cyber Alarm that we're in exactly the same position, that all of our reviews are perfect, because actually, being honest, we've over-delivered with those first customers. Yeah. But as a result, we've learned more, the product's got better. So by the time we scale out more, the people that never talk to me will have just as good an experience.
Really, and that is always the best way to do it. I think that's perfectly put. For you as a founder then, because you know with Etio, it was your baby, I'm guessing, in a little sense like that. With Cyber Alarm, you know, you've got two other co-founders, two other partners. How has that been for you to manage the difference in how you work, because you've got that support from effectively day one?
I've absolutely loved it, even though it's been really challenging. So I've never worked in a corporate environment, and both Dominic and Matt have. They're used to structures. Yeah, they're used to structures of having other peers and people from very different perspectives and at very senior levels. So effectively, I've stepped into a job that I would never have been employed to do. And that's one of the other joys of being an entrepreneur, right? I'm having to learn, I'm having to adapt. All of us are.
Exactly. And this is something you would never have guessed you would have gone into.
No, I'd have never applied for a job in cybersecurity. No, absolutely not. I found it brilliantly challenging. Is that the right kind of phrase? Yeah, I mean, I love the idea.
You like that? Do you get a thrill off the challenge?
No, it's hard with founders, right? The thing I think I've found hardest is not getting the work done, because generally I think between the three of us, we trust that each of us has an area of expertise and we just need to get on with it. And that's why we've got such a lot done so far. The thing that's been more challenging actually is the level of effort that's going in. It's people feeling that their contribution is equitable. And those kind of discussions are quite challenging, like money that you're putting into the business, or everyone being equal in a way, and how stuff is shared out. It's all of those kind of conversations that have been most challenging. But I felt I'm 40 this year. I'm learning things that I feel are very valuable to me as a grown adult. That I probably should have learned earlier. Better late than never, that's what they say.
Terribly British of you.
Terribly British.
The biggest challenge is deciding about the money.
Yeah. Well, just quite frankly, Matt, my partner, has been able to do work every week. Every week systematically, he's been able to do a bit every day. I've got a 4-year-old and a business that is a video business which is project based, and so with the best of intentions, I haven't been able to give my full commitment at times that I wanted to because of the realities of life. That stuff's been the challenging stuff to get through, because at the end of the day, someone told me as partners you've got to, and I'm not sure Matt or Dom would agree with this phrasing, but hey, Tom's
I'll make
more
sure
my kind of person, right? He said to have partners, first of all, a partner has to have a superpower you don't have. You have to trust them and you have to love them. Now, whatever you take love to mean, I'm quite a huggy guy. Dominic, I'm sure, would be the opposite. But I think essentially it's really important, right? I know that both of my founders have superpowers that I don't have. Yeah. And I trust them. And I think, unfortunately, when someone's working very hard and someone, just because of the way it works out, isn't able to contribute quite as much, that plays at the edges of trust. When someone is able to put some money in and someone isn't, that plays at the edge of trust. And so it's a relationship, right, with your founders, and you've got to kind of go on that journey together, and we have. And so we speak each week at the moment under lockdown on a director's call, and we don't agree on everything. There's a lot we don't agree on, but there's an awful lot that we do. And each week we step forward and we make decisions, and things, the product gets better and we get closer to our goals. So
was it hard for you to manage that difference in working for in terms of yourself here? Because obviously Etio, you from day one, you probably did everything yourself. Those superpowers you sort of had to learn, and perhaps they weren't as great as they could be, as that, if you did bring on other people. How was it for you? I guess the word would be letting go of things, right? Because when it's your own baby and you're a one-man band, especially at the beginning before you have staff, you are doing everything and you are trying to manage and spin all those plates. Was it a relief for you that you knew you had those superpowers to hand and that, you know, they were dealing with the technology side and you don't have to think about it as much detail?
I think I'm a very different person at 40 working on cyber alarm than I was at wherever I was 27 when I started doing etio. I think etio was much more out of necessity. It was a bit of a combination of I had worked in advertising as an account guy, didn't like it, worked as a camera trainee for the BBC, wasn't using my brain quite enough. And so I wanted to set something up that enabled me to work the way I wanted to work. And I knew that if I just waited for people to call me, that work would never happen. I needed to step forward and make it happen myself. So it was sort of unintentional that I set it up on my own. And in fact, at the beginning, there was a good friend of mine and we worked quite closely together, and it could have become a partnership earlier on, but she was on a different journey and I was on a different journey. So funnily enough, I wouldn't say it's about letting go right now. I've had no issues with that, with what we're doing. It's nice to feel that a group of people have come together with a diversity of skill sets to achieve something, and then we've just got on with it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it hasn't really felt like letting go. And I can understand. I mean, look at Lockdown Gardener again. I had partners in that business. I'm an open person. I'm very happy. I've learned by 40. I'm not middle aged, but I've learned that the more you let go and the more you focus on what you're good at, the more you get done. So yeah, that's not really changed actually.
Is Lockdown Gardener over? Or are you going to carry on doing something with that?
No, it isn't actually. So I was camping at the weekend, and a good friend of ours is a logistics guy. He basically running trucks all around the country.
Yeah.
He was working for Toyota, for example, before lockdown, and big businesses. He was talking about working the machine. I said, "What do you mean by work the machine?" He said, "Well, you've figured out now how to do this system of delivering in London. The incremental cost of you deciding to do that in Leicester, Nottingham, Birmingham is literally the cost of someone driving from your distribution center to Birmingham. It's exactly the same." He said, "You should just run with it." So yeah, we're doing a little kick in the autumn just to our existing customer base, because there's autumn bedding plants. It's very seasonal. Gardening is very seasonal. Basically, the season is March to June. So when
I was in the garden yesterday planting plants. I've done this wrong.
you have to. Well, they'll be fine. But
I was promised they were evergreen though.
They Justine, when she worked at Wyvale, they spent 80% of their marketing spend between March and June. Wow. So what I'm planning to do actually is for the winter really focus on cyber alarm.
Yeah.
etio, I'm using an outsource model, so it's not distracting me. So I've got teams of people I work with. I just consult on them and I outsource the work. Focus on cyber alarm for the next 6 months, and then we'll give it another little go at lockdown gardening in the spring, but probably with me, hopefully, if everything's going to plan, being more in a consulting role. Whereas, you know, this year I was one of the delivery drivers, and
fully involved,
literally all hands on deck. But again, I mean, that's a good learning for cyber alarm.
Definitely.
The reason I think we've got a chance of a business with Lockdown Gardener, or whatever we decide to call it in the future, is because I personally delivered to hundreds of people, and I knew I got to really know what it was about our brand that had some longevity, and that's what I'm kind of applying with cyber alarm. Is I should have similar relationships with technical customers. Why not? Why shouldn't I? You know, it's nice to engage with people on their plants and their garden, but if I engage and care about their businesses and their cybersecurity in the same tender, loving way, then that will stand out, because it's not an industry that's known for that personal or humanity.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was just about to say. You are humanizing it. You're speaking at a level which people understand, rather than the typical level which you see a lot with cybersecurity and data-led businesses, where it's such a technical language that people just get lost in it. And by the time that they try to understand it, there's probably they've probably been retargeted by 104 different ads, and they're just in overwhelm. So yeah. I don't want to give away all of our marketing strategy on this podcast, but I'm amazed that no one has flipped the lens the other way around. So what interests me is not telling you
what my service is at all, just almost like cyber alarm being the punchline. So if you know, Stephen, if you're someone's talking to you now on a video, telling you from their perspective the relevance of a cyber attack and how painful that is, and you identify with them, and then the punchline is, but don't stress out if you'd had cyber alarm. I mean, and that's kind of how I'm really trying to steer away from features and benefits and how stuff works, and focus on human stories and the consequences of these things, because these people aren't searching. They're not doing Google searches for cybersecurity for SMEs. They're just not. They're either reactively going, "Oh shit, my company going to free fall,"
don't they? They just go, "Oh well, this is part of being online. You're going to get attacked at some point at some level."
Yeah, I think I think there's quite a similarity with the finance sector and what businesses like Xero have done. Because as a small business owner, God, I hate doing my books. That's the last thing on my pile, but I know it's important. And so Xero, I pay 35, 40 quid a month plus payroll, 50 quid a month. Well, but actually, by being with Xero, by being on top of it, you're actually able to make strategic financial decisions rather than, and I guess that's the same with cybersecurity as well. You don't want to be reactive, you want to be proactive, so that you actually as a company can go out and say, we're taking cybersecurity seriously, and it becomes a reason that people would use you as a provider because you're front of foot, not back of foot. So I think there's a similarity there. And so I often kind of say that with our service, that you have Xero or QuickBooks for your finances each month, and you have cyber alarm for your cybersecurity.
There's obviously a big deal of education and that side of things, though, because bookkeeping, accounting has sort of been drilled into you from day one, even from school, and business studies and things like that. But cybersecurity is a fairly new concept in terms of the commercial world. So you're putting yourself in that education position, I'm guessing, with people.
Yep.
Which is great.
I mean. Yeah, that's the key point in terms of how you are alerted and the advice that you're given of what to do about it. Is there's an education piece. So yeah, we're building out a whole learning center.
Is there specific businesses that you're speaking to at the moment, or are you sort of just going after any small business?
I think there's right. When I say small business,
small business. I mean, Facebook was considered a small business for like 4 years, weren't they?
I mean, I think our sweet spot is somewhere, or we think, it's not just me, Dominic as well, somewhere between 10 and 50 employees.
Yeah.
So around 40 or 50. So one of the biggest companies I'm speaking to at the moment that's on the platform, and we're working together, we're actually partnering on a report as well together, is an accountancy practice. And they've got about 40, 45 staff. They've got, what you tend to find with companies of that size is they'll have someone they call on for IT. It will be someone's husband or wife, or if someone was recommended. So they'll have someone they call on, but they haven't got someone permanently in-house. At 50, you start to hire someone who's there as a full-time job. And then at the other extent, my video company, 5 people. I mean, this sounds weird because I'm a co-founder of a startup, but I'm trying to be honest here. If I heard about cyber alarm and I didn't know about it in the first place, and it was sold to me as well as I'm going to sell it to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I might pay for it, but still at 5, 10 people, I'm probably thinking, well, that's another 50 quid, and I'm much more engaged with with each amount. Whereas once you start to get some momentum, 10, 20 staff, you're like, I just want my back watched. I'm not stressed about smaller sums of money. So I think that's our sweet spot. And I think at the moment, I think that around healthcare, accountancy, legal, those kind of sectors where people have data, which we've got one element of our products, which is a data breach alarm. And Paul, the founder of WOW, the accountancy practice I just mentioned, when I filmed some clips with him the other day, he said the one thing that keeps him awake at night is a data breach, because the effect on their reputation would be catastrophic if they weren't all over that. Well, that's one of the alarms that we've got set up. It's a monitor where we create an entry that you put into your records, and then we track if we ever see it being used. So I think those type of businesses are particularly pertinent. But I did some filming the other day with someone who runs a metal fabrication business, and one of his customers.
This is your like excitement that you like to work with different people coming in, I think.
Well, I think you can't. It's logical, right, that a legal practice with lots of data would be concerned about. But this guy, you know, salt of the earth guy, metal fabrication, and one of his customers received an email from him and paid £20,000 to a hacker.
Wow.
You know, and he's a business, 10 staff. He's more important actually than the legal person, because there's a lot more Warrens who, if I can open your eyes by telling you Warren's story, and you're like, oh gosh, right, I didn't realize.
I mean, that comes back to that education side, isn't it? Because the lawyers, the accountancy, like you said earlier, they have the knowledge of data breach and they understand how important keeping it safe is. But your metal fabrication guy, who's probably, you know, been doing it since he was in his teens, that sort of, I'm really painting like a fairy tale picture, this guy here.
Yeah,
but
it's his dad's business.
Yeah, exactly. He's never going to think, oh, I wonder what I need to be doing about my customer names and things like this. Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually,
so I'm enjoying that, and I think that's my heart of my job, is really getting under the skin of our customers and building a great product.
Love it. Ashley, listen, I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on the show. One of my final questions to you is, how can people find out more about Cyber Alarm? What is the best way for them to get in touch?
So the website's cyberalarm.org. And my email is ashley@cyberalarm.org. I'd love to talk to anyone and everyone, competitors, friends, foes, whatever. I'm always interested in speaking to interesting people. And over the coming months, we're putting together a report and various other interesting bits of content that we'll be sharing through the site. So love to hear from anybody.
Ashley, thank you so much for coming on. I look forward to seeing how Cyber Alarm unfolds. I look forward to seeing what Lockdown Gardener comes out with next spring, and I'm sure you might have a few other as well. So I look forward to just seeing how you have developed as well.
Fabulous. Really nice to talk to you.
Thanks everyone for watching and listening. This has been Founders 365.